just introduce ourselves a little bit. My name is David Jackson, and I am former president of the Orange County Private School Association for quite a few years, and also formerly the National Independent Private School Association and the California Association of Nationally Recognized Schools, and currently the president of Fairmont Schools. And I love education, I love the school opportunities, and this opportunity to share with all of you. I'd like to let Mike introduce himself.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mike Diephouse. I'm a consultant with TIAA Financial Services, and we're the program manager for the state of California Scholar Share 529. So I'll be talking to you a little bit about that program today. Thank you.
Okay. So I'd like to get a few questions first from some of you so we kind of get a better feel for who we're talking to. How many of you have children currently in private schools? Okay, a few of you. How many of you, if you can come up with the funds and so on, would put your kids in private school if they're not there? So that's probably why you're here, as that's what we want to try and do, is to help you figure out how to do that. So I'd also like to know, how many of you already have a college savings plan, the 529 that started maybe, and could I go ahead and ask, how long have you had those plans? Did you start it when the child was born, when they were 2 or 3, or what? Maybe just real quickly. So, okay. So you're smart, you realize the prices are going up and there's got to be a way to do it. Anyone on this side already have a 529 plan? Okay, and have you started at the beginning? Okay, I wish I would have done that. Now at this point, my youngest is 36, and college was more expensive than I expected, and I should have done that, but I wasn't as wise as you. So, how many of you are aware now that the 529, as of January 1st of this year, is available for using those funds for K-12? Okay, a couple of you. That's what we really want to try and emphasize, because that's something that we found, I've found, that I think has a huge opportunity for families. So, and I'm taking, I won't ask the last question, I've already got that one answered. So we're here to help you make some of the informed decisions, to try and give you all the information, because I really believe in school choice, in your choice. It's your choice, not the government's, where you put your child. I'll do a little, I hope it's not too negative, but it's been this way for eons of time. I think it's rather ludicrous that because you live here, this is the school that you're assigned, and I hope that more and more parents will start seeing that this is not fair and that they should say something to the government and try and raise holy heck and say, we need to change that. It's your money, it's your tax money, it's our tax money, and it should go with the child and the family, not to the school. But this is one of the first times that I've seen that they're actually giving us something that gives us some control over our tax money of using it. So, how do you determine what school is the best for your child? And is there anything more important, and you're speaking to somebody that totally believes this, but I haven't run into too many people that don't. It's more important than the education of your children and of yourselves, of your family, to help them to have a really great life. So with that in mind, I would like to, I've been stressing this for a long time to any family, that since it's that important and is important enough to you, to spend the time, to take the energy and go out and see what's available. And my suggestion is to check out, obviously, your local public school and to see the one that's closest where your child is assigned or will be assigned, but also to check and see what are the public schools that have the greatest reputation, that you're hearing the greatest about. But instead of just listening to that, go out and check it out yourself. You wouldn't do that, I hope, with a doctor or so on, just because somebody says they're really good and find out they're not that great. This is equally important, and so please do that. My suggestion is, even if you don't feel you can afford it and there's no way you can, that you ought to go see what else is available in the private school market. Look for the best one that you're hearing of and the one that seems to make the most sense, is closest, and so on, and at least see what else is available, so you're making a decision based on facts, not just what you hear. Because I hear this all the time. I heard it from my kids when one of them moved to Virginia and the other one moved to San Diego, and said, where are you going to send your children? And they said, well, we are hearing that the local public school is the best around. And I said, have you looked? And they didn't, and so we looked. And they found it wasn't that great. But that's what you need to do. That's your responsibility as a parent. And I hope that all of you do that. Obviously, you're here, and I wish we could share, and you would share with all of your friends that they should do the same thing, that you're at least trying to find out what else is available. Another suggestion is to use a checklist. Don't just go off your memory. Actually, we're supposed to have, and I don't think it's up here, a sign-up sheet that you can go ahead and fill out for the Orange County Private Schools with your name and at least email address, and we will send you something. We don't have it right now. What we have is a little out of date. I found out, unfortunately, I was a little embarrassed with that, but that we would love to go ahead and send you a checklist that we've come up with. You can go online and find some too, but if you would like, we'll do that. And maybe if you could find that list for me. So this is one of the other things for families that are in public schools, and we hear this a lot from a lot of our families, from my friends and others, that it's not really completely free. In most cases, you are paying extra, and it's just, again, for your knowledge, to look into it and realize, what am I paying now? A lot of times you've got the after-school care. Sometimes some of the schools no longer are offering some of the things that they want to, that they used to have. A lot of families are doing a lot of extra academic tutoring because they don't feel they're getting enough. But it's all these different things, and it varies a lot for a lot of families. And so that can really help you. Our main thing here is to try and give you other ideas and things that will fit for you. And one of them is, and I've put it at the top, and we'll talk more about it in a little bit, this year now, that the 529 savings plan is no tax on earnings. And again, we'll give you a little more information. I put that at the top because from my point of view and all the research that I've done since December when it first was announced, it is a lot better than most of us think. And it's sure a lot better than I thought originally. There's the Coverdale Education Savings Account. We'll briefly talk about that. Whoops. If you're not aware, most all private schools that I know of do offer financial aid for families that are needing assistance. And you just fill out forms, and most of us send it to an organization that looks it over, and they just give us the information back. They don't give us, we don't pass out all of your personal financial information. That's still kept private. And they just tell us, this is what we say we recommend the minimum and the maximum financial aid that this family should warrant because of their needs. Some of these others, I've had some friends that said, well, how do you talk about people saying cutting back and so on? I'm just sharing what we have heard for years from a lot of the families that have their kids in our school, and as I visited other schools. What do they do to try and make it affordable? And one of the big things is controlling their costs. And they are saying, we feel it's so important that we can go ahead and cut down on some of our costs. We won't get a new car every 3 years or so, or every 4 years. We'll make it last longer. We won't get new furniture. We'll cut down on our more exotic vacations, and we'll do a wonderful family vacation, and you need to do that, to the mountains, to the beach, where you can find ways to save money. There's a lot of different things that all families can do. We have quite a few families that the wife maybe hasn't been working, she's got little kids at home, and she takes a part-time job. One of the beauties now is there's a lot of jobs that you can do at home online. I know some come and will get a job working at the school part-time to help fray the costs. So there's just a lot of different ways you can do that. One of the other biggest ones, and I used to be surprised, I'm no longer surprised at how many families are having help from their parents or the kids' grandparents, and that they share what's the greatest gift you can give to your grandchild than a great education. Don't get carried away of giving them a bunch of candy and toys and stuff like that. If you can go ahead and help out the family so they can afford to put them in a school that is really much better for them. And of course, you've got other family members too that can help. There are loan programs, and normally I wouldn't be pushing people to borrow money, but I've been saying it for a long time to my friends and others that knowing what I know, I would mortgage the farm, I would mortgage my house to at least get them in the first few years of a great school, of kindergarten, first, second grade, to third grade. I've seen firsthand the huge difference it makes in a lot of kids' lives where they start off, when they're little, they're sponges, they're hungry to learn and they want to. And if you start them off the right way where they love learning, they love their teacher, but they also know they work hard and you have to work hard. And then if you can't do any more than that, then they will be, and we've seen they will be at the top of whatever school they go to, whether they're in an inner city school that's not very good, pretty well, they will start off so much stronger. And if you can continue on, that's obviously even better, but that's one of the most important things. There are, we put it on there, the Your Tuition Solution is one that we found. They're on the East Coast, but they specialize in tuition in loans, low interest loans for families. I think their limit right now is $50,000 for up to 8 years. But there are different things you can do, and maybe between that and working with the private school, you can find that they can help you to make it work. And then I've seen this also a lot. Unfortunately, we've gotten to the point now where the last statistics I saw was 68% of all students are going to college throughout the whole United States are taking 6+ years to graduate, and about 30 to 40% are not graduating at all because they just weren't as prepared and they found it too hard. And find the schools, public or private, that are going to give your kids a good enough education to really be prepared for college and to get into the best ones. Okay, these are just some figures that we've been able to put together to give you some ideas. We have tuitions, and this is elementary, junior high. Right now, throughout this area, the lower range is around $7,500 a year for tuition. Mid-range is around $12,000, and the upper range is $20,000 plus for schools. And it shows just some of the different figures that you can do to help defray some of those costs, and again, sharing the things. And we're going to spend most of the time on the ones that's new now, the 529, and then the others are things that you're completely in your control. Does anybody have any questions at this point? Okay. I've also got the same calculation for high schools, and the lower range now is pretty close to 16,000. There are some others, but that's for the average 24,000 and 30,000. I took a slide out because I didn't want to get in trouble, but I'm going to say it anyway, and so they get me into trouble. I've found on some websites, and I've actually had an employee before that worked for the Los Angeles County Department of Education, and he was responsible for all the finances. And unfortunately, what we are told and see about what it's costing for education in the public schools, I'm just saying that's not quite correct. It's much higher than that. They're not including the cost of facilities, of upgrading them. They're not including, in most cases, the district offices. They're just saying the specific school. And so we as taxpayers are paying a lot more, and it's more in this range here for our kids getting educated, but we don't have the control over it. Okay, why don't I let you tell a little bit about so I'm not the only one talking.
Absolutely. So I'll go ahead and provide you some additional information on the two education savings plans that were mentioned. And first of all, it sounds like a number of you already have the 529 plans, which is fantastic. Be a little bit of refresher for you and some new information for others. And first of all, with the Coverdell Education Savings Account, this is a tax-efficient savings and investment vehicle for education expenses. And one of the key benefits with this program is that any investment returns, any earnings or growth or interest that's accumulated in a Coverdell Education Savings Account will grow tax deferred, so you're getting compounded growth in that account. And you can take the money out of the account, both federal and state tax-free, for qualified education expenses. And this could be for K through 12 education as well as higher education. So you have a lot of flexibility with the way that you can use a Coverdell Education Savings Account. The one caveat with these accounts is that there's a maximum annual contribution of $2,000. And so that's the annual cap. And there's also income limitations as well. So depending on your income level, you may not qualify to make the contributions into an education savings account, or you may only be able to make a partial contribution. And so right up here, we do show that the phase out range is $220,000 for a joint couple. And then with these accounts as well, they must be used by the time the beneficiary is age 30. So there's some restrictions on when the funds have to be used in the education savings account. And then what we'll do is we'll talk a little bit about the 529 plan as well, which the 529 plans can provide a little bit more flexibility. Traditionally speaking, the 529 plans are another tax-deferred savings program for higher education expenses, and have been used can be used tax-free for qualified higher education expenses. And as Mr. Jackson noted, there's some changes as of January 1st. With the new tax reform, 529 plans can now be used for K through 12 education as well as the previous higher education expenses. One thing to note with that, the approvals for K through 12 education are only at the federal level, where you can use 529 money tax-free for K through 12. The state of California is still in the decision-making process whether the state law will match up with the federal law. So if you're considering 529 withdrawals for K through 12, you certainly want to talk to your tax advisor before making those decisions. Just want to make that disclosure. I would anticipate a decision from the state of California next month. And then some of the additional benefits of the 529 plan are the contributions that you can make into the program. A contribution into a 529 is considered a gift to the beneficiary. So your maximum contribution amounts are actually based off of the IRS guidelines for gifting, where an individual tax filer can gift up to $15,000 per year per beneficiary, or a married couple filing joint can gift up to $30,000 per year per beneficiary. So you can see versus the Coverdell account, you can put much more into the 529, and there's no income restrictions, so anyone can make these contributions. And then the IRS does allow you to do an accelerated gift of up to 5 years maximum. So an individual tax filer can do a lump sum contribution of up to $75,000, satisfying 5 years worth of those gifts. Or a joint tax filer can do a lump sum contribution of $150,000, again, satisfying those 5 years of gifts. So you can put much more into the 529 plan. And then there's also no age or time restrictions to using the 529 plan. So you don't have to worry about that, the maximum age 30 in the other program. And then you also can change beneficiaries on these accounts. And it is worth noting on the education savings account, you can change the beneficiary there as well. So if you have other family members that might need to use the funds, you have some transferability of these accounts. The last thing that I would add is that the 529s, I'm sorry. I think that's all I had at this point. The only other bullet point up here is for a K through 12 withdrawal. It's listed up here that you can take out $10,000 per year per beneficiary. So you're somewhat capped on how much you can take out of the 529 for K through 12. But again, just keep in mind that those withdrawals at the state level might be taxed and penalized. So we're still waiting on the decision from the state on that. Was there anything else that you?
I just would add, as I've done the research, and my guess, and it's strictly a guess, I don't have any contact with the state. I was born and raised in California. I've lived here my whole life. I may not be happy with all the things the government's done, but I love California. My guess is it's not very likely that they're going to approve the state aspect of approving it for K-12. They have approved it, or it's already approved for college, so you get both the state and the federal when you pull it out for college, but for K-12, you will just get the federal. But of course, I look at that and say the federal is a huge part. I think the state, I keep saying this and I haven't researched it completely, it's like 8.8 or 9%. Does anybody in here know for sure what the maximum state tax is? I think it's 9% is what you're paying. The thing that I've looked into and I realize is for all the years, anyone that has their children in private school or considering, you've been paying for private school with completely taxed money. You've been paying federal and state tax on it. Now you can go ahead and invest in the 529 and earn what right now is some pretty high earnings because the stock market's going crazy. I know in my 401k and so on, it's been earning 15 to 20% the last 2 or 3 years. I would recommend that you talk to your tax people and look about putting as much as you can in right now while it's really accelerated and you're doing quite well with it. And because all of that money then you can use and pull out $10,000 a year now and then use it later in college to pay tax-free. That's saving some families 38% federal tax, and if it works out with the state, it's 9%, but I don't count that right now. I just look at the 38, 35, 33, whatever it works out. That can be huge, but again, don't come back later and say, you promised this. Talk to your tax people about it. I got to do the little caveats there.
Before we move on, my final thought on this, I'm sorry, I remembered it. Mr. Jackson had mentioned earlier that we see a lot of grandparents that are gifting for education purposes. With the 529 plan, anyone can make a contribution into the plan, so it makes it a great program for grandparents or other family members to be able to gift into this program, and they all have their separate amounts that they can gift into the account. Is there a question here?
Are you not able to contribute? Do you know what else but the owner of the account can contribute?
Yes, because you have to, there's certain income limitations. Yeah, so it's based off of the individual. Each individual may or may not be able to make a full or even any contribution to the education savings account. Yes.
I think my thing with that is before the 529 for K-12, Coverdale was one of the only things you had. It's not very good. It doesn't build up very fast, but it's better than nothing. Now with the 529, you can do both, but it seems to make the most sense to me to focus on the 529. But again, check with your tax people. They can figure out things that are fantastic.
Yes. Question here.
Okay, so just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, could a family open a 529, put 10,000 into it, take 10,000 out, and save the 30% tax? Would it be a tax deduction on their form that year?
Thank you for asking that, and it's a great point to clarify. The contributions going into the 529 or the education savings account are made on an after-tax basis. So here in the state of California, there's no tax deduction for making contributions to these accounts. The true tax benefit is really on the back end where your earnings grow tax deferred and that money has the potential to come out tax-free depending on the type of withdrawal.
So that's where, just kind of further on that, is that's where if your grandparents and others can help you put the money in on the front end, if you have a lot more in there, your interest and return is going to grow much faster. And then my own thing is I wouldn't pull it out until I have the tax-free money, which is the interest that I've made on it. And I've got a couple of slides because we've done a lot of different scenarios to try it out that I'd like to go ahead and show. I think there was a question back here.
Control over the disbursement of money after 18, so we pay up to the child, or it's still controlled by the parent or the
With one of the nice things with the 529 is that the account owner maintains control of the account. So typically the owner is the parent, maybe sometimes there's a grandparent that's the owner of the account. But with these accounts, it's the owner that only has control of the account and will determine when and if the money comes out. You might be thinking a little bit about custodial accounts. There's some tax efficiency with these, but they're mainly taxable accounts. It's a uniform gift to minor or uniform transfer to minor, UGMA, UTMA accounts. These particular savings vehicles, the minor does have legal rights to the money when they turn 18 or 21, depending how the account is set up. With the 529, as well as the education savings account, the owner maintains control of that. Does that answer your question? All right. Okay. Yeah, the question's asking what would be the difference of using a Roth IRA versus the 529. The tax mechanics work very similar, where you're looking at after-tax contributions, tax-deferred growth, and the potential for tax-free withdrawals. Essentially the same between Roth and 529. With a Roth IRA, though, there are income limitations as well. There's certain guidelines to be able to make a contribution to a Roth. So not everyone will qualify for Roth contributions. 529, everyone does. Beyond that, I think it comes down to your personal situation, because Roth IRA, from my personal perspective, is that's a vehicle to save for your own retirement. 529 is completely separate for a loved one's education, or the education savings account as well. Those are separate accounts for education. The Roth could potentially be for your own retirement, could possibly be used for education, but then, are you taking away from your own retirement potential for those education expenses? That's kind of what my question always is. But it depends on personal preferences. There's a lot of pros and cons to all these programs, and you always want to kind of analyze your own personal situation to make the best decision for you.
That's where I kind of jump in just further on that is, I would say for my own kids, I would rather put some money away for my retirement, especially when I was younger, and put as much as I could into the education, because if my kids and grandkids get a great education, they're going to be able to help me out more when I have problems later on than if they didn't get a good education and they keep coming to dad or grandpa and saying, I need your help. I'm struggling here because I didn't get a great education, I have a bad job or whatever. And so I really feel it's my own personal thing, but I think that's a real wise thing to look at. So, the other question?
Yes. There are, and I'm not a Roth expert by any means, but for a Roth IRA for education purposes, there is a possibility of taking some of that money out tax-free. I'm pretty certain, though, you're limited on the amount that you can actually take out. So I think there's a number of questions. First of all, do you qualify for Roth contributions? Second of all, to your point, how much can you take out potentially tax-free? How much of an impact will that make on some of these expenses?
Okay, I was pleased that I found this is actually your website from your organization. When I first met and talked to Mike, they didn't have anything with a calculator on there for K-12. Theirs was only for college. And since then, they've added this for the K-12 part. And if you just go to scholarshare.com, and you can find a calculator that you can plug in your own numbers of what age you want to start and so on. I just played around with it a little bit for some families that might be here that their child is already 4 years old and they haven't put money into a 529. And if they did and they started off and they just at the beginning just invested, it came up and calculated out specifically and said if you put in $17,990, that would cover the $10,000 withdrawal starting at 9th grade for high school and would save you $22,000 plus $3,300 in tax. That's starting kind of late. You know, the calculations are much better if you started, like, as many of you have started when the child is born, because you got 5 years before they even get to high school to build up. And if you can start off with a larger amount, it can make a huge difference. And this is showing a high school with an average cost starting right now at $16,000. By the time the child is in high school as a 4-year-old, that's 12, 13 years from now. The price is going up. I'm putting in here what I've seen a lot of them, 3%, sometimes a little more than that. So I've got one more here that I played around with and said, okay, this is where you already put money in and you have it in the 529. If you start off with putting in just $1,000, but it's $1,000 a month, then you can go ahead and save $130,000 and still have $201,000 left when your child graduates from high school to pay for college. And it just, to me, if you're at all thinking about it, this makes no sense to not do this and to not really look into it. And again, talk to your tax people about it. But this just, it's blown me away. It's why I added it to this, and I'm so excited. And I've spent quite a bit of time with my CPA and our accounting department to run a lot of different scenarios. So any questions on this part? Okay. This is the website I was just talking about.
Yeah, so that is a separate website from us, but this is a really good resource, savingforcollege.com.
Okay. So it came from yours, so I guess that they did it. Okay. This is a great one to go to because it has that calculator on there, and it works really well. We've got to get a picture of it before I move to the... Just to recap, and then we'd love to go ahead and open for any more questions that you might have. Again, it really starts with figuring out what's the best for your child. It's your choice, not the government's and so on, that you should really decide what is it you really want. That's what I like when I go out into the room. There's a lot of choices of private schools, and you can try the open, you can try Montessori, you can try very academic strong ones, sports ones, and so on. It's what you think is the best, and you're the ones that should be figuring that out. You can get a lot of help from others, but you should do that. And the same thing with determining which school is the best for you to do, use the checklist, and then again, all the different ways that you have. I'm excited that you have a much more. I've given this years past, and when you took out the 529 part, there's not as much as primarily go to grandma and grandpa and ask for help. Now you can go to them and this 529, and I feel very comfortable that it's going to make a huge difference to all of you. So, any other questions from any of this? And again, the loan part, I've already made my statement of that. I don't know if you want to add anything, Mike?
No, I was going to say, if you do have follow-up questions, we'll be around here for a little while.
Yeah.
I do have a table on the opposite wall, so I'm around here today, but we'll be available after also.
And that, definitely go and visit and see what he's got there. So I leave you with this last one that what's the greatest gift that you can give, what's the greatest gift that your parents, uncles, aunts, and so on can give, is to help you out with getting a great education. So thank you very much, and I hope that we can talk a little bit. I'm going to make a little bit of a plug myself. At the end of this, there will be another presentation that starts, I think, at 3:15, and then at 4 o'clock, I've been invited to come back in and to share a little bit of more of my research, and in addition with this, I have a little badge that says, ask me about the Fairmont College Promise. So that's my little plug. I'd love to go ahead and share with you how those two work together incredibly well. And I can talk to you as a smaller group then. So at 4 o'clock, I'll be back in here. But now, questions that you have.
Yes, sir. You just mentioned is the best time to start the private school maybe is at the beginning, like the first to the third grade. But before that, I heard from some friends they suggest that the best time to start the private maybe at the higher level, like middle school or high school. What's your thought on that?
As far as when to start your child?
Yes.
My own personal one, again, is start them as early as you can and give them the head start. And then, you know, if you're already doing well in wherever school you are and you hit the lottery or something, or you invest in the 529 and you can put your child into a really great private school that you've looked at, then I would move that way. But I still have found over the 50 years I've been involved in education that starting them early and giving them the head start is the most important. And then trying to keep it going is really great. Do you have any? Okay. 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 Other questions? Other things that we can do? Okay. How many of you are gonna look into the 529 plan now, if you haven't already? I hope you do. It's a great savings thing. I think the other parts that I saw that I didn't know at first, that's where I'm kicking myself that I didn't do it years ago. But I don't think they had it when my kids were in elementary school then.
Yeah, they started in the mid to late 90s, so they're still fairly newer programs, and when they first came out, just the information wasn't as readily available. It's becoming more and more valuable. There's been some changes that have made these programs even more friendly, something that Mr. Jackson's talking about right now with the whole K through 12 at the federal level. So a lot of good improvements in these programs.
Okay, thank you for that, because now I don't feel so bad. I didn't have the choice back then anyway. Now you have the choice. I want to share one other thing that I did learn that I made a mistake, and that was when my kids went to college. Many of them went to a church college that we belonged to, that we really liked. And I remember when one of my sons wanted to go to CU Boulder instead, and I should have first said, that's great, you go there, you do whatever you want, but my money goes to this college. I didn't. I said, I'll go ahead and help you pay. I think as parents, we should let them do their own. But the biggest mistake I made was when we went there, not talking to them about financial aid from the college. Now, given financial aid in colleges is different than most private schools in K-12. College, most of that it's a loan. The school is giving you a loan in a lot of years to pay it back, or they're going through the government loans. But there's a lot of things. You can get scholarships too, that isn't a loan, but you should at least ask. I will share with you, at my son's graduation, I was sitting next to his best friend's dad, who I got to know fairly well, and while he was graduating, and he graduated in 4 years, I mentioned, I was really bugged that my son went there instead of the school I wanted, because I paid about $12,000 a year more. And he looked at me and he said, didn't you go for financial aid? And I said, no, I think I make too much money. And I'll be frank, at that point I made $100,000 a year. And he said, I make $250,000 a year and I got a 50% financial aid. I about fell over and felt so stupid that I should have at least asked, and that's what I tell everybody, at least check into it. The worst thing they can say is no. The best thing they can say is yes, and especially if you have multiple kids. You would be surprised at how much financial aid is available for families with multiple kids, and if you got 2 kids going to college or 3 kids, it's really expensive, and you need the help, and they're there to offer it. So that's one of my final suggestions there. Any other questions? You've been a great audience. Thank you very much, and good luck. I hope you get a chance to go and check out all the schools and see what is best for you. Thank you, and I would love to see some of you back here at 4 o'clock if you'd like to find out a little bit more.